last week, Kentucky, Mark Stoops on Monday said that they're still down about 25 to 28 people in the program. Some of those are players, some of those are, staff. But as of right now, they're still on track to play South Carolina on Saturday. And fun little bit of trivia. The game Saturday night, I saw this, Twitter, wherever, you find all your information. The last time Kentucky played a regular season game in the month of December was in 1907. And they weren't even known as Kentucky then. They were called Kentucky State University or Kentucky State College or something like that. And they played another, I can't remember what the name was now, but it was Transylvania. Anyway, Kentucky won that game 5-0. But, anyway, it's kind of one of those fun little things. And the thing about it is we're talking about, COVID and everything. I believe if assuming they play on Saturday, Kentucky and South Carolina will be the only two teams that have gotten their 10 games in uninterrupted, basically, not having the whole, Kentucky, they had the Missouri and Georgia game switched around earlier in the season, but from start to finish have gotten the entire 10 games in.
Yes, Kentucky at home Saturday night, SEC Network, 7:30 Eastern time against South Carolina. The Gamecocks come in at 2-7. The Cats are 3-6. All right, Kelvin Joseph, fine cornerback who obviously is extremely talented to be on draft boards all over the place, has opted out for the final couple games of 2020.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that was Mark Stoops came in his Monday press conference with the media like he always does and was commenting how, commending the players, how this whole season no one has opted out. Nobody has, everybody's just gone through and made it through the season and just, it's been so great with everything that's gone on, just trying to get through the season with, Coach John Schlarman's passing away. And then like 6 hours later, the announcement comes out that Joseph is declaring that not only is he declaring for the draft, but he's just not going to play in the last two games. Now, the story that's going around is that basically he just didn't want to play this week. Like he wanted to sit out against South Carolina and then maybe come back for the bowl game. But Stoops said, no, we're not doing that. So that's the story as we've heard it. So basically, yeah, he's become de facto Kentucky's first one-and-done football player. So you think about John Calipari, how he's built his whole thing at Kentucky on the one-and-done program. Guys come in for 1 year and leave. So Joseph, in essence, becomes like the first one-and-done football player for the Cats. And it's a big loss because, you and I have talked throughout the season. He struggled really badly the first couple games. He got burnt against Auburn, kind of got burnt against Ole Miss, and then got his legs under him, got back into playing, and starting with that Tennessee game, has played really, really well, has four interceptions, number one in the SEC, and I think second or third in the nation. And so, yeah, it's a big loss. It's a little bit surprising, but, it is what it is, I guess.
I'm also surprised by his decision or his would-be decision, his offer, because in recent years we've seen a number of players opt out of the bowl games. Mm-hmm. And then in this particular season, as teams are moving out of contention and the last few games are in jeopardy, we see a couple players on a number of prominent teams that are opting to go to the NFL draft and make that decision early and just prepare for the NFL draft and not risk injury. But for Joseph to actually offer to play in the bowl game, but not in the last regular season game is interesting.
Right. Like I said, now that's the story. Now, okay. I know he didn't want to play on Saturday, and then whether or not the bowl game, like I said, I've heard both ways. So, but I'm just throwing that out there. So just so everybody knows. So if it was one way or the other, we may never know, but that's just what we've heard. Now, like I said, I don't know. I was a little surprised by it, basically along the lines of what you said as well. But, it is what it is. And Kentucky, I think Cedric Dort will probably move over and take Joseph's spot for Saturday. And then they have a really good freshman, Carrington Valentine, that they're really high on, who's played some this year, and probably a guy for the future you might see also on Saturday night, because they're going to need they'll need it. They'll need somebody. I think Shi Smith is supposed to be back for South Carolina, and he's basically just killed Kentucky. Over the last few years, he's always seems to have a great game against Kentucky. So they're going to need somebody on that secondary to step up and stop him.
We talk SEC football here every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time as we wind down the season. And it's always a guessing game as to what the schedule is going to look like each and every week. If the schedule holds as it's currently constructed, it'll be another oddity that a team like Kentucky and South Carolina will conclude their season 2 weeks before a number of other teams, not just the teams that reach the conference championship game, but also other teams that will be making up games. And again, it's going to be an odd conference championship game and day across college football, with other games in addition to the conference championship games being played.
Right, right. Because it is weird, because you and I had talked that we had heard that they were going to postpone the Alabama game, and we'd heard they were, the Florida game. I'm still amazed that they even played last week. I think Kentucky should get a lot of credit for going out and still playing, because teams have, I think, canceled for having a lot less players out than what Kentucky did. But yeah, it is going to be weird that you're going to have the championship game and then possibly some other SEC teams playing each other that day. And not only the SEC, the Big Ten, maybe Pac-12. I don't know where you find TV for all these games, but for us to sit and watch it's certainly going to be interesting. And then, I'm still waiting. I'm sure I know you have your Ohio State show every day. I didn't get to catch any of that one, but how that's going to work out with the playoff with Ohio State. So if they by rule, if they don't play on Saturday or next Saturday, they're not supposed to be eligible for the Big Ten championship. So, but do you
both of those games? They have to play both of those games.
Right.
Yeah.
And then do you still put them? I mean, I think obviously they're one of the four best teams. If you just they probably should be in there, but do you follow the rules? And like I said, in 2020, there's really no rules for anything, right? So it's just whatever works for this week, I think.
Well, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee has selected teams that have not won their conference in the past anyway. So that would just be another example right there. Kevin, based on the number of players that are missing these games, and of course, their names are not released for good reason, but with the knowledge of who's injured and who's on that list and inactive for the game because of injury, there's usually a pretty logical deduction as to who's on the virus list, who's not eligible and making and participating in the game because of that. What prominent players are not showing up of the last few weeks amongst these dozens of players that can't suit up?
Well, probably the biggest one is Christopher Rodriguez, Kentucky's leading rusher. He's been out, didn't play against Alabama, didn't play against Florida, and like I said, we can just all assume that that's what the issue is. They think he's going to be back for Saturday. AJ Rose and Kavasier Smoke obviously have done some good things there running the ball. Justin Rigg, tight end, starting tight end, he's been out. Those are probably the two biggest ones. There's been a couple of other, not necessarily starters. One of the offensive linemen was out against Alabama. I think someone on the defense. The names are escaping me right now, but Rodriguez is probably the biggest one, just for what he's been able to do this year. I think he's rushed for somewhere between 500 and 600 yards. Kentucky's going to have they had a 1,000-yard rusher, I think, each of the last four seasons, and unless Rodriguez runs for 400 some yards against South Carolina, and then a possible bowl game, then that streak's going to end this year. And then Kentucky's, this would have been in a normal year. Kentucky, with their 3-4 games that we always count as victories, would have had a winning season. So this would have been a 5th straight winning season this year, but that's gone. That one's not happening this year either. But getting back to your question, Rodriguez is probably the biggest name that's been on that list. And like I said, they think he should be back and able to play on Saturday.
6.4 yards per carry and 7 touchdowns for Rodriguez this season. So, Kevin, you mentioned the record at 3-6, one last game here, and then we'll see what happens with bowl participation, because on one hand, everyone's eligible. It doesn't matter what your record is, but there were 41 bowl games last year. We just had another cancellation today, the Las Vegas Bowl. So I think we're down to maybe 33, 34, something in that range.
Right.
So there's going to be some determination of record. So it's not just like you can go play in a bowl game just because you want to. So anyway, we'll see how that sorts itself out. What I was going to get to was just that Mark Stoops has slowly been building a winner at Kentucky. It took him a few years, but once he got over the hump, got to a bowl game, won a bowl game, finished in the top 10 a couple of years ago, despite injuries at the quarterback position, still pulled out an 8-5 finish in a bowl victory last year. Then they take this hit this year. And I got to think that Kentucky fans were extremely happy with Mark Stoops' performance headed into this season. Are they pretty much just counting this as 2020 being 2020, and he's still on the right track doing all the good things to build this program?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people, you have your, some, and every fan base is like that. You have the, I don't want to say crazies, but, people that, they didn't go 8-4. So it's obviously the worst season. But I think, and I'm included in that, I think a lot of people are willing to put an asterisk beside this year and say, the all SEC schedule. I think, we talked way back in the summer that, there were going to be teams that were going to struggle. I didn't think Kentucky was going to be one of them because of all the players that they had coming back, the entire offensive line, the running backs, healthy Terry Wilson. But you think about, they got, the 2 added, games Kentucky ended up with this year was Alabama and Ole Miss. And honestly, the Ole Miss game, if you go back, Kentucky should have won that game. Ended up losing in overtime on a missed extra point. So you think about that right there. You take that game, that's a Kentucky win. Then you beat South Carolina. You're at 5-5, and everybody's like, basically you won 5 games in the SEC. Kentucky in a normal year very rarely wins 5 games. In an 8-game SEC schedule. I think most people are still think Coach Stoops is on the right track. I do think they need to make some changes. They need to make some changes. Probably the offense. Eddie Grant, honestly, offensive coordinator, has been the guy that's getting most of the grief or most of the verbiage, whatever, directed, because everybody sees, as we've talked about, the pinball, Madden-like numbers, everybody scoring 40, 50 points, even, Nick Saban, embracing the offense. And you see Kentucky has been under 300 yards total offense 6 of the 9 games this year. And that's with all of these players coming back. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't clicked this year. And no one has been able to no one's been able to put their finger on what the exact problem is. But like I said, I think for the most part, people are willing to write this one off, like I said, as an asterisk and just, basically just a byproduct of this year in general. And I do think there will be some changes. You hear rumors, of course. I think, I don't know the Grand will be gone, but or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but I do think Coach Stoops is going to sit down after the season and think about, going forward, because Terry Wilson will be gone, and then you have Joey Gatewood and Bo Allen, 2 really, really capable quarterbacks, and you got to figure out, how you can best use them, other than just handing the ball off, 3 yards, or in Kentucky's case, usually 5 yards in a cloud of dust. But to answer, I think most people are willing to accept, okay, this is just a strange season. And then now if we come back at the end, if we're talking Kentucky's 3-6 or 4-7 at this point next year, then yeah, I think you're going to definitely, they'll be feeling, Coach Stoops probably feeling some heat, but I don't think, I think they'll be back to that 6-7 win plateau probably next year. So.
The Kentucky football season concludes Saturday night at home, 7:30 Eastern time kickoff on the SEC Network against South Carolina. And then we'll see about postseason play after that. And speaking of which, if you want to check out the latest in bowl projections, you check out Kevin's work on Last Word on College Football. Just go to Last Word on College Football. Check out the work from our friends Tony Siracusa, Jason Ray, and Kevin. And Kevin does his bowl projections at the conclusion of every college football weekend.
Yeah, if I could just get the selection committee to listen to me, but like I said, we're a lot higher on BYU than they are. We have them in the Fiesta Bowl. I have Kentucky in the Music City Bowl this week, playing Iowa, which would be an interesting game because that's Mark Stoops' alma mater. And I don't have South Carolina. Sorry, Gamecock fans. I don't have South Carolina in a game this week, but that's, things can happen, especially now with the Las Vegas Bowl officially being canceled. So it was kind of a given. Everybody thought it was going to be, but anyway, but yeah, like I said, I have Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State. That's our 4 championship teams in the championship game in that order. So you'd have Alabama and Ohio State, and then Clemson and Notre Dame playing each other. I don't know. Basically it would be a week and a half after playing each other in the ACC championship game. So I guess it could be like a rubber match or something.
All right. Part 3. All right, Kevin. Appreciate you stopping by.